Hello and welcome to our 30-second session, and this is a continuation from your 21st session wherein we had built a prototype of our animal feeding game. So here we had used just a capsule as a player, 3 cubes as animal and 1 red spear as a power up. We had all the primitive objects ready to go for all the main components of our project. But the first and most important element we should focus is on the player. So by the end of this session, your core player movement will be functional. Depending upon the type of the project you are making, the player controls may be completely different. You might be able to move all around the screen, jump up and down, and also rotate left and right. Whatever the core player controller is, it needs to be done first. But after you have programmed where the player can move, you also have to program where they cannot move. For example, if your player can move all around the screen, they cannot leave the screen. If the player can jump up and down, they cannot be able to jump endlessly. That's the goal here. Program how your player can move and also how he cannot. And one more thing important here is, till now in Unity we were using input package, wherein we used to use GetAxis horizontal, GetAxis vertical to move the object. Now Unity has come out with a new input system. Briefly to tell you, when the player is controlled by the end user, he might be playing the game on a PC, he might be playing a game on a mobile, he might be playing the game with a game controller stick, he might be playing it on an XR toolkit. The end user may use different devices where the input controls will be different. Now in our regular system of this input system package, we use if condition and test. If key is pressed W, move forward, or if key pressed is arrow up, move forward, or if the gamepad stick is pushed forward, move up. So we have to write some hundreds and hundreds lines of this if statement. So to avoid this, Unity has come out with this new input system. We are going to prototype our player using this new input system. Let us start by launching Unity Hub. Now coming to the project, and I am going to start with completely a new project. I will click on new project, and in the template I am going to select Universal 3D SRP as my template, and coming to the right in the project name I am going to call this as PlayerControl _ prototyping. In the location E Unity project I am going to click on create project. Now as the project is getting loaded, come to this YouTube video or to your e-learning page, and if you scroll down, you have description, click on more, and you are provided with a Patreon link. Click on this Patreon link and come to the Patreon page, and here if you scroll down, you are provided with 32 prototyping player controls Unity package. Click on this to download this package. Once Unity is launched with its default layout, now come into the project window, you have this readme file. Select it, come to the inspector and click on remove readme asset, and in the confirmation window click proceed. If you want to use the layout that I am using in my video, you can come on the right side on the layout and choose Sartvic layout. If this Sartvic layout is not available, come into the Patreon page provided in the link. If you scroll down, you have Sartvic _ layout.wlt file. Click on it to download it, then come back to Unity, come to the right layout panel here, click here and choose load layout from file. Now come to the downloaded Sartvic _ layout.wlt file and click on open. Your layout and the layout I am showing will be the same. Come into the project, assets, right click, choose import package and choose custom package. Select the downloaded 32 prototyping player control package and then click on open. And in import Unity package, see that all is selected and click on the import button. Now once it is imported, in the asset come into the scenes, and here you have Dear Game prototype. Double click to open this. So in our previous 21st session when we completed it, we had created all these primitives. So now it's time to add player controls. We are going to add player control using the new input system. in Unity versions above 6, when you launch the project, automatically in your project panel, you will have one input system action already created for you. If you double click and open this, this is going to open this input action editor, and you can see that in action map, you have controls for player, controls for UI, and in controls you have action move. And if you open this, we call this as binding. Say for move, it is set to value, left click, WASD. So you have this entire panel which we are going to discuss now. So for this session, we are going to create this from scratch. We are not going to use this default one. So I will close this and I will click don't save here, and I will select this input system action and I will delete it and click on confirm delete. Sometimes you have deleted it, and if you want it back, you can come to edit project setting, and even here you have input system package. No input action is assigned. So you can click and assign a default project wide action asset. If you click on this, automatically this will be again created and it can be used. See, now again you got this input system action. Right now I am going to select it and I am going to delete it. Click on this delete button here. Now we are going to add it fresh and we are going to customize it. To add a new empty input action, come into the project panel, right click, come into create, and below you have input action. Now click on this input action and I am going to call this as player control actions and press enter. With this player control action selected, I can either double click it here or come into inspector and click on edit asset. Now you have the player control action editor open. First, I am going to add a map. So in the action map, click on plus and I am going to call this a player and press enter. And for this player, I am now going to add action. So already one new action is here. I am going to double click on this and I am going to call this action as move. And if I come into the action properties, in action type, I am going to click here and choose value, and in control type, I am going to choose vector 2, because when I am moving, we can move it in only 2 dimensions. Now I will open this move, and right now it has no binding. I can come here on the plus icon and I am going to add up, down, left, right composite binding. So when I click on this, I got a 2D vector composite. I will select the above binding, right click, and I will delete it. Now coming to the extreme right binding properties, come to composite type and I have chosen 2D vector, and in mode I am going to now set it as digital normalize, no issue. And if I open this binding, you have 4 buttons here, up, down, left and right. For up, I will come and click on the path. I can come into the keyboard. I am going to press W, select W. I will select the down, and in the path, I can directly come here in listen, type yes, and I can choose yes keyboard. Similarly, I will select the left binding, and in the path, I am now going to add A keyboard. And then for the right binding, I will click here and I am going to add the D keyboard. If I want to add another binding, if I want to use the arrow keys also for this movement, I can then go to move, and on the right side plus, I am going to click on add up, down, left, right composite. And I will open it, and this time in up. So I will come into path, I will use this US key layout and select the up arrow key. For down in path, I will click keyboard, US keyboard, and I am going to add down arrow key. For left, I will click here, come into keyboard, US keyboard, and I will select the left arrow key. And for right, I will click here, come into keyboard, and I am going to add the right arrow key. So like this, we can create any number of bindings. Say if you are using a game stick to move, click on the right, choose add binding, and here come into the path, and in gamepad, I am going to use the left stick. If I click on show derived bindings, you can see which all devices uses it. You get the complete list here. I will close move, I will click on the plus icon here and I am going to call this as jump, and I will open jump, and in binding I am going to come to path. I will come into keyboard, choose US layout and select the space key. If I am using gamepad, then I will add another binding, come into path and I will choose gamepad. Now I am going to use you have buttons out. I will close this jump. If I also want to add a crouch action, I will come into action and I am going to type crouch, and here I will open it, and in the binding come to path, select keyboard, select location by keyboard layout, and in listen type C and select C keyboard. For gamepad, I will click on the right plus button, add binding, come into path and choose gamepad, and if I scroll down here, I am going to click on right stick press and choose it. So we have added 3 actions and the binding. I will come to save asset and I am going to save it. Now let us close this player control action. Selecting this player control underscore actions, if you come into the inspector, edit asset is nothing but double clicking and opening the action editor. You then have assign as the project wide input action. If you want to use this to other game objects also, you can enable it. You can use this generate C# class. Now all these actions will be converted into a C# script. You can enable this. You can give the C# class file a name. I am now going to call this in the class name PlayerControls. In the class file also I have to give the same name. So in C class file, I will click on the 3 dots here to browse. In assets, I will create a new folder script, and in the scripts folder, I will name this file also PlayerControls and click on save. I will keep the global namespace. See that the file name and the class name are the same and click on apply. If you come into the project panel, you have scripts, and if you open this, you have this player control script. This script holds the player control action result. So wait for the script to get compiled. I am going to come into the hierarchy and I am going to select my player. I will click open to open the prefab. We already have capsule collider added to it. I will come into add component and I am going to add rigid body component to my player. To close this, I will come up and I will come out of this prefab. To apply this player control action to my player, I have to create another script. I will come into project panel, select script, right click, and I am going to choose create. I will create another mono behavior script and I will call this as capsule player control and I will press enter. See that the name of the class here and the name of the file is the same. I will select this capsule player control script, and from the project panel I will drag into hierarchy panel and drop it over my player game object, and I will select the player game object, and since it is a prefab, I will come into inspector and I want this script to be added to every instance of this player. So I will come into inspector, override, and I will click on apply all to apply to all instances of this player. I will come into the project panel, select capsule player control, and I am going to double click to open it. We are going to control the movement using rigid body. We are not using transform translate. I will come into the class, and after this open flower bracket, I will press an enter, add 2 forward slashes to add a comment, create variable to control movement speed, and I will press enter, and I am going to call this public. The type of variable is float, and I will give it the name as move s capital speed, and I will set its initial value to 6f and end it with semicolon. I need a variable to hold the instance of my rigid body component. I will add another 2 forward slashes, create variable to hold rigid body component, and I am going to keep this private. This type is rigid body, the type of variable, and I am going to call this as player RB, and I am going to end it with semicolon. I will press enter and I will add comment. I want my player control. So whatever control action we have created to associate, I am going to create variable to hold player controls component, and I am going to call this also private. Type of this variable is player controls. I am going to call this as just simply controls and end it with semicolon. The final one variable that I need, I will add 2 forward slashes, create variable to hold the movement value of the input device. Means when you press WASD, whatever value is generated by the player control action, to hold it, I am going to declare another private, and this is a vector2 component, move input, and end it with semicolon. You are already awake of this method called as start, and the start is a method that is called after the game starts. But as soon as you start the game, between the start and the launch, it is going to take some time, and we call this period as awake. I am going to call another built-in function now. I will call this is a private void, and it is called as awake. Then automatically you have this code block added, and in awake I am going to set my player RB value equal to get component, and in lesser than greater than sign, inside this the name of my component is Rigidbody. Come out of the greater than sign, add open close bracket and end it with semicolon. Now next I am going to call controls, and this will be equal to a new player controls. I will add open close bracket and end it with semicolon. These two are added initially to instantiate Rigidbody and player control. So above this I will press enter and I will add comment, add 2 forward slashes, assign Rigidbody and player control components to our variable. Whenever users presses this WASD keys, so it has to read WASD. This is a vector2 component, and this value from the new input system. I am going to call my controls, and in that I will call my mapping element player. I will press period, move period, perform. This means when the user presses WASD keys and when the values are created in our input system, this will be, I will add plus equals context. The context shortcut for that we use is CTX. Now this is a callback function, and we usually represent it with equals and greater than sign. And now we call our vector2 variable move input, and that move input will be equal to the CTX period read value, and the component that it is going to read is vector2, and end it with open close brackets and semicolon. This line number 21, what it is going to do is, whenever the user presses WASD keys, the values are recorded and added into the move input vector2 component. Then when the movement is stopped, that is when the user stops pressing WASD key, then we add this second line. I will call the same control player move, and this time cancelled. If the movement is cancelled, I will use the same sentence above. I will use the same sentence, and here I will press enter and paste it here, and in this case move input will be equal to not CTX value, but the vector2, the value will be set to 0 and end it with semicolon. So if the move is cancelled, then the value will be reset to 0. So in our awake code block, we have added these 4 codes. Now before we continue further, one point we had missed is, for this input system to work, come to the first line and we have to import these namespaces. Right now we are only using Unity engine. Below that I have to add one more line using Unity engine, and in Unity engine period I have to call this input system and end it with semicolon. Then after this awake function, I will come after this closing flower bracket, press enter. I am going to call a function private on enable. Inside this function, I am now going to come to this controls. I am going to enable this. Open close flower bracket and end it with semicolon. Instead of writing a function so long, because here there is only one line to perform in this function or method, what you can do is after enable, I will delete all this part. I have to add this open close flower bracket equals greater than sign, and I can write directly the command controls enable and end it with open close bracket and semicolon, because there is only one line. Instead of writing a function so long, and in this code block if there is only one line, then we use this shorter method. I will press enter and I will call private void and I will call another function called as on disable open close bracket, and this will be equal to greater than sign, and here control spirit disable add open close bracket and end it with semicolon. And finally come application of our data, whatever value is obtained by WASD, to apply it to our capsule. I am going to come next. We are not going to use start and regular update, because if we use rigid body, we are going to use another kind of update called as fixed update. So I will call private void and I will call this fixed update. Inside this fixed update, I will add two forward slashes, convert my vector 2 value to vector 3. I will press enter. Before I apply my WASD movement to my player, the value that we are getting through our input system, this move input value is a vector 2 component, but my player is in 3D workspace and it needs vector 3 value. So to convert this vector 2 value to vector 3, I will declare a new variable which is of type vector 3, and I am going to call it as move, and this will be equal to a new vector 3. Here I will add open close bracket, I will add semicolon, and inside this bracket I have to now specify XYZ value. X and Z values are coming from my move input. So I will take move input period X value as X value. For Y I will give 0F because there is no value for up and down movement. Then move input Z value, I cannot use move input Z because move input doesn't have Z value itself. So I have to add it as move input Y. So my X and Y value in move input has been given as X and Z value, and for Y we have given 0F. After this value, I am also going to multiply it by my variable move speed that I have declared it at the top here, 6F. I got my move value here, and next I am going to press enter, add two forward slashes, type two forward slashes and add a comment. We are now going to apply movement to our player using rigid body. I am going to call player RB, that is my rigid body component of the player, period, and previously we had added this add force. I am not going to add force, I am going to add velocity, and in this I am going to use linear velocity. This will be equal to a new vector 3, and in open close bracket I will end it with semicolon, and inside this the X value move period X. So I am taking this value from this variable, comma. For Y value, I am going to get my player RB rigid body component, and I am going to take its linear velocity because this is coming from a gravity, and I will also press period and I am going to take its Y value. So this value is coming from the gravity force of my rigid body. Then I will add comma and finally move period Z. And with this I will now save it, and now I will come back to Unity, allow the script to compile. Now if I play the game and test it, see now I will use the arrow key or WASD key. W will move it forward, A moves it backward, D moves it to the side, and A moves it to the other side. But when it is moving, you can now see that it has got rotated. See, you are seeing these rotations happening, and if I want to avoid those rotations, I can stop the playback, come into the player, and in the inspector come into rigid body. Here you have constraint and we are going to constrain its movement along the X and along the Z. Along the rotation, I am going to actually freeze its rotation. Now I will go to file, save it, and now if I execute the game and if I check it, so now my player will move forward straight like this. See, he is moving straight and he is moving in all direction, and we have incorporated this logic of moving the player. We have added this player control using the new input system. I will stop the playback, and in our next session I just want to add two more features. One is to jump and another is to crouch, and these things we are going to discuss it next when we come into this prototyping session.